Hello, my name is Richard Procida. This is the screening of the movie The Red Pill, A Feminist Journey into the Men's Rights Movement. And this is being done by a number of groups, the Election Response Center. I want to thank these groups for helping Whittier Indivisible, Not Above the Law, the National Coalition for Men, and of course, the nonpartisan Red Pill Men's Group. This is part of the National Coalition for Men. And the nonpartisan Red Pill Men's Group is a podcast and also a group where we discuss the issues. Like I said, this show is being recorded. It's going to be posted on YouTube, Facebook, and on a small low-power radio station in Oregon called KJAJ. Please like and share our shows and subscribe to our YouTube page and on Facebook. We're also having a meeting next week, and we have one on the first Sunday of the month, same time, 2 o'clock. We're doing a study of Rollo Tomasi's book, The Rational Male, and you can register for all of that whole series at tinyurl.com/redpillmen.
Yes. So our surprise guest is, like Donna said, the director, Cassey Jaye. I think you're also a producer and co-producer. You had quite a few credits there at the end. So editor, filmer. So yeah, really thrilled to have you here. And I wanted to find out first for a little bit what you knew about the Braver Angels, because if you want to compare, the Braver Angels is also a snowdrift because there's so many varying opinions across the Braver Angels, network. And the whole idea is, how does everybody talk to each other about their different points of view? So I just wanted to first ask what you knew about Braver Angels.
Yeah, great first question. So I only heard about it last week from one of your members who gave me the tip off that this event was going to be happening, which I'm just so thrilled about. I'm 38 now. I started making the red pill when I was 27, so it's just been such a long journey since then. And now to revisit this film and this discussion with a present day lens is so unique. I've kind of been off the map the last few years. So just thank you so much for hosting this event. I'm so thrilled and honored that all of you, I'm guessing all of you gave your time to watching the film and also now extending your time to being at this event. So thank you so much. What a gift. And I do hope that, me being here does not stifle anyone's opinions. Please lay it out as bluntly and honestly as you truly feel. But I also have opinions 10 years later. But yeah, I'm just so honored that you guys are hosting this. So thank you. And from what I saw on your website, it sounds like something I absolutely align with, and bridging the gap between these partisan sides on many issues. And in my experience making the red pill, I feel like I actually became less extreme after making the film, if that makes sense. It just nuanced in my opinions about things. And that was from the act of reaching over the aisle. And starting as a feminist, it was really from lived experience, my life experience, that led me to be a feminist. And then through making the red pill, it was exposure to these other life experiences that I never would have had firsthand, that I think made me become more nuanced in my view on gender politics now.
Fantastic. Well, how we're going to start this, everybody, is we're going to open up questions to any of the audience that'd like to ask Cassey before we, have the scripted questions. So who has a question for Cassey? Just go ahead and raise your hand on the Zoom. Okay, Donna, go ahead. You're first.
Okay. Cassey, where'd she go? I lost her. Ah, there she is. I thought the film was wonderful. And I want to know if you're still making films. I hope so.
Yeah, I'm working on it. So I have a 4-year-old son whose birthday's today, actually. So, but it's okay. He's with dad. They're having fun. And a 1-year-old son. So yeah, since making the red pill, I now have 2 boys and a lot new life experience. And I'm very anxious to get back to filmmaking because that is what makes me really feel alive and like I'm in my energetic passion for what I love to do. So yeah,
I have 2 sons as well. I have two sons, but they're grown. They're both 50. And so when I saw raising boys, even though I was a feminist, I needed to see the world through their eyes, and I was a single mom too, so I really needed to see the world through their eyes, and and they're still very much men and sometimes real assholes. It's like, oh my God, I thought I did better than this. Where did I go wrong? But so the film wasn't as eye-opening for me, but I thought it was done with a lot of love and understanding and tenderness, and good job. I can't wait to see your next one.
Thank you so much.
How about Rich?
Sorry, go ahead, Rich. I was muted.
No.
Sorry, Rich, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I really love the movie. I appreciate that you were minded to that and open to change, which I went through a similar process. I had a lot of problems. I studied the study of women and men, or gender studies, at USC, minored in the subject, thought of myself as a feminist for a while, joined the Students Alliance for a Non-Sexist Society, started an organization, the Feminist Anti-Pornography Organization. And eventually I wrote a book that was considered feminist studies. And but then I've found out about the red pill, and all of a sudden now I feel like even though I did all those things, I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about women until I discovered the red pill. And so my question to you at the end of the movie is that you say something, there are some men who take advantage. And I think that that's probably still some of your residual, and I want to know whether you've overcome that or seen that, some of your residual prejudice, because a lot of these men that I think you're talking about are men who are just trying to learn how to meet women, how to approach women. They're the ones who have to lead. It's a very complicated situation. Women make their monies, but they still want men to make 60% more than them. So it's a very complicated situation for men, and it's outside of more than just the men's rights perspective. And so I felt like at the end of the movie, you sort of came down on those men who are just trying to be successful in their relationships with women. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to is I kind of make a summary of different groups of the manosphere. So there's the men's rights movement, which this film follows. And then there's men going their own way, the MGTOW movement, which I learned an easy way to remember the difference between the groups is the men's rights movement wants to change the system. The men going their own way want to leave the system. And then there's this Reddit group called the Red Pill, which definitely has had a lot of confusion with the title of my film. But the Reddit group, the Red Pill, and also kind of the incel culture, the pickup artists, that there's a lot of kind of ways you can slice it. But in reference to that group, men can use the system. They tend to be looked at as using the system for their advantage. And it's hard to. I didn't do a deep dive into that group from the pickup artists and the incels and the Andrew Tates and those kind of people. I haven't done a deep dive into them because they kind of came out after I finished the Red Pill. But from what I can see on the level that I've looked into them, I do think there is a bit of in the system too is like, how do we define that? I think a lot of people have different views of what the system is, but my view is the system that they're taking advantage of is playing into the natural proclivities that women in general have and men as well, and kind of using that system to their advantage. And in the pickup artist case, in general, it can usually be like casual sex is the goal or something. I haven't looked into Andrew Tate enough, so I can't really comment on him. But so that's what I meant by that. But it is so tricky. I mean, all this gender political stuff has always been so tricky as long as I've been working on the red pill, because generalizing can also lose sight of, the specific case scenarios, and also, painting things with a broad brush can be really detrimental. But then, and we are talking about half of the population, and so it's just all kind of tricky. But yeah, I definitely think I do think that there are people that use the system, just as there are women who use the system. Um, and you could have labels as like gold digger, whatever it is. But there's a lot
Yeah,
of
well,
people in the
yeah, I think I would say that these men, and I know there's always individual people and different types of people, and there's good people and bad people. But generally, I think these types of men are not taking advantage of the system. They're adapting to how women are. It's going to be very hard for a man to meet and function with a woman unless he knows their psychology and knows what's going on. And the way I look at it, it's that women don't want us to know these things, not because we're going to take advantage of them, but because they want to take advantage of us and looking for the dupe, the blue-pilled dupe that they're going to take advantage of. And so that's the opposition to learning about women's true nature. And so, I think that that's something that you might want to consider when looking at these other parts of the men's movement, that you might at first have a negative proclivity as using the system rather than adapting to a system created by women, which we've been called the gynocentric social order, or that part of patriarchy that devalues men's lives.
yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah, let's that was a lot. There's a lot of people raising their hands. I want to move on to the next question. Thanks, Rich, for your comments and your answer. Cassey, Elaine, go ahead.
Thank you. Cassey, I had a question. You mentioned when you were speaking about how you've had more thoughts since it's been 9-10 years since you made the film. What are those things? And I think some of them are come up, and what generated it.
Yeah.
Probably some of it is that you have 2 sons now.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Becoming a parent. Holy cow. It's like before being a parent and then life after a parent. It just feels like completely different worlds. Yeah, well, something that just freshly came to mind with Rich, the last speaker, was that I think there's what I've really definitely seen in my own life lately too is the unconscious nature's way of the genders, and then there's consciousness raising efforts that we do because we're evolving and hopefully becoming smarter species, and and we try to be more aware of the unconscious things we do. So for instance, I heard that one of the top things that men I'm sorry, let me start over. I heard that one of the top things women look for in a partner, in a man, is a promise of future resources. So he may not have to be rich now or like have the nice car now, but like a promise that in the future he has access to resources and this sort of thing. And so that can be looked at, on a really like baseline kind of judgmental way of like, oh, women are just looking for a guy with money. But there is this, I have 2 young kids at the moment. I'm a stay-at-home mom. My 1-year-old is actually medically challenged, and so it's 4 therapies a week plus doctor's appointments and scans and all sorts of things. And this is a lifelong battle he'll have. And so I may be looking at a lifelong caretaker position. And, now it makes sense, like, wow, and you become a mom, you really do want a partner that has access to resources to help take the load and the burden off of you with the kids. And So, it's all of this has kind of just been percolating in my head since making the red pill of these. Yeah, I mean, there's just the biological way things are, they are. And I think that's why feminism had so much steam and so many followers for so long, is because it is so hard to be a mother. And when the laws were really limiting their abilities, with access to childcare or access to jobs if they're out of the workforce for 10 years, and all these things. Extremely hard. And then, divorce, no fault divorce. And now we're seeing more single mothers because of this. And so just everything changed since the 60s, 70s, everything changed. And I think we're still trying to figure out how to make things equal. And I don't know if that's ever possible, because biologically we will never be equal. I know scientists are trying to make it that way, but we won't. And so, I think that understanding, and that's why I do think the Red Pill movie is still relevant, because seeing the man's plight as a father, as a protector, as a provider, I mean, that is a hardship in its own. And I think I really needed to learn about that. And so since I needed to learn about it, I think a lot of other people needed to learn about it too. But in no way is it the full picture. I don't think the red pill is the full picture, but it is, for the time that it came out, it was good to start conversations. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take Kathleen, you're next, and I think we will have time for just one more after that.
Thank you so much, Cassey. I have to say that your film brought a new set of eyes to my perspective. One of the things I noticed, one of the themes that came up was the laws regarding parental the rights after a divorce. And I'm curious if has the film affected, or have those laws been kind of nudged to a little bit more, maybe more favorable view of fathers as parents versus fathers as just the providers?
So I'm in California, and it does seem to be, I think there's been a socially conscious swing in understanding the importance of the father in the picture. And luckily, I think a lot of these psychologists and, researchers luckily are coming to social media and really kind of spreading the word that way with the importance of that. People, gosh, I'm forgetting the name of one of them, but yeah, just sharing how important fathers are. And so I think there's a mixture of, well, as far as family law, I'm not sure how much change has happened, but I think people are like, especially mothers who are going through a divorce, are seeing like, how can we keep the father in the picture and make sure he's as, mentally healthy and stable as possible to be the best father for him and her as well, knowing, the health of the mother impacts the children. So yeah, I think it's more of kind of a consciousness.
Yeah, appreciate it. It was a good film.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kathleen. We'll take Michael. That'll be the last question for Cassey. Michael,
Thank you so much for the film. I greatly enjoyed it. In fact, I just started watching it again for the second time in preparation for this, and I've recommended it to several people. A couple things, like the term success object. I really appreciated that. Sex object versus success object, which I think points to what you were talking about earlier about resources. One thing I've wondered about is a cultural piece to this, because to my recollection, I think it was mostly white folks who were represented
on this side of the grass too.
And then I in the interviews with those who were self-identified feminists in the films, one of the things that was, I'll use the word frustrating in its mildest form, was that I heard the perspectives that the men's rights activists were putting forth, and then you were bringing those forth. And then when the feminists provided their perspective, it seemed like they were talking about different things, but I didn't hear any redirection or bringing that back in, or following up with some of the points. And then, so along those lines, I'm wondering, after the film came out, after they saw,
men's issues,
then you was there any response back from those whom you had interviewed who were self-identified feminists?
Okay, so the first question was about is it the diversity of the cast? Is that what it was about? Michael?
Well, just wondering if there was, it's more just a curiosity if there is a cultural piece to this. And I don't know if there is an answer or if that was part of your exploration, or if you
Yeah.
noticed that in this movement, if it is predominantly white males.
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to activism, it has leaned that way. And, I've also noticed that with my feminist films as well. So, it could be um, flexibility of time and, support to do activism work. It's very, it's kind of a privileged position to be able to give time to being a full-time activist. And so, I have seen mostly white feminist activists as well as men's rights activists, majority, not all, but majority. And then I had a couple opportunities to film people of color, men's rights activists, and it was one of those scenarios where it was like limited time, limited budget, and it didn't work out. And I just thought, well, as long as I get the main names in the film, and so that's how the chips fell. But and then the second question you had was.
Any response from those the self-identified feminists in the film who you
Right.
interviewed after they saw the film? Did you get any response based on your clear transformation or evolution, or however you want to, your change in perspective? If they had follow-up thoughts on that, or if you've gotten any pushback?
Yeah. So if it appears in the edit that they're speaking two different languages, which I did find to be true. I mean, so I edited the film myself and was definitely I'm showing, obviously it's a 2-hour film. I filmed 100 hours, so the ultimate goal is to make sure I get across the journey I did experience and the interactions I had with these people as best of my ability, but it's, I'm not showing the whole 100 hours. So, but I didn't interview, like, for instance, Michael Kimmel, who was one of the feminist authors speaking against the men's rights activists. I was directed to him actually by Gloria Steinem. I reached out to Gloria first to see if I could film her. She said she was too busy, and she said, talk to Michael Kimmel, he's the guy. So I met with Michael Kimmel, and everything I asked him about the men's rights activists' point of view, he thought they meant something completely different. So there was this kind of disconnect. And he attended the New York premiere of the film, and he actually said he liked the film, but I think actually when the reviews and the news articles came out about the film, and the media kind of took this hard stance that if you're for gender equality, you better hate the Red Pill movie. And there was like a really like line drawn in the sand. You're against the Red Pill movie if you're for women's rights. And so that's when Michael, didn't want to be involved with it. And then actually odd kind of turn of events, where he was a professor, Stony Brook, he actually ended up being accused allegedly of sexual assault and lost his position there. So I would have loved to have followed up with him. I'm not sure, but maybe he says he was falsely accused. But either way, it's an issue that the men's rights activists are trying to bring up, and I would be curious his thoughts now on it. And then Big Red, the feminist activist, never spoke to me after the film came out. Catherine Spiller, also with Ms. Magazine, never made any statement about the film. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does totally. Yeah. No, thank you so much. It was phenomenal, great conversation. Not anything I was even aware of, and I was actually skeptical going into it, and very much enjoyed it. Like I said, I recommend it to others as thought provoking. And yeah, I'm kind of surprised that you didn't hear from some of the others. So that in itself is interesting. So thank you for that. Thanks for your work.
I don't think you should be focusing on the Equal Rights Amendment. I think that's a side issue. For one thing, we're all in favor of an Equal Rights Amendment. That's not something for us to argue about. And for another thing, even if it passes, that still does not necessarily translate into equality. For example, California, most states have you cannot discriminate on the basis of race, sex, religion, or national origin in a place of public accommodation. Yet they still have ladies' nights. They still insurance companies still discriminate against male drivers and so on. Yeah, what Rich said, that is, nobody's against the Equal Rights Amendment. We're just saying that that's not going to be the answer automatically to all of these issues. It's not going to be the answer for women. It's not going to be the answer for men. It depends on how it's interpreted. And one of the things that struck me in the movie, watching it again, was how the feminist arguments against men's issues are just variations of the arguments used against women's issues. For example, I just got to stop this from, okay. Joint custody, for example, is the male equivalent to equal employment opportunity. In both cases, women looked at careers and see that men exercise power and earn rewards and get fulfillment in their careers, and we want equal access as women. We call that equal employment opportunity. And nobody's against that, at least not in the men's movement. But joint custody is the equivalent issue for men. We look at women raising children. We see women exercising tremendous power over the children, over the future of society, over their ex-husbands. We see women getting tremendous self-fulfillment. We see women earning tremendous rewards. They're sharing whatever the man makes within that family. And we want equal access. We call that joint custody. But feminists, without exception, are opposed to joint custody, and they use the same arguments which you saw in the movie. You saw him say that, and her, like they both said it, that, well, if men wanted to raise children, it's too late. You should have been doing it during the marriage. That's exactly what was said against the women who wanted equal employment opportunity. Oh, sure, now you want equal employment opportunity. Why weren't you working within the marriage? Why can you suddenly say, now I want a job? The same thing with choice. If they were saying to a man that, well, if you don't want the responsibilities of being a child, of being a parent, you should have thought of that before. Don't have sex. That's your option. But women, that's exactly what the pro-life movement is saying to the pro-choice movement. We don't need to legalize abortion. If you don't want the responsibilities of being a parent, don't have sex. It's not good enough for women, and it's not good enough for men. And it's not fair to use these same anti-feminist arguments, anti-equality arguments against all of the men's issues at the same time that you want the focus on women's issues. We should focus on both. We both need equality. The men's movement does not oppose women's equality, but feminist organizations are vehemently working against men's equality.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I think that's important to recognize. And I think, Dawn, you have anything to add since you're still up here? As a woman, talking to another woman?
Gosh, I follow the men's movement pretty closely, and I do see a lot of anti-feminist comments and sometimes anti-female comments. And I just like to differentiate. We have women who consider themselves feminists who want equality, and that has always been me. But I see comments about, men are violent and men are this and men are that. And I even just get rid of them, we don't need them, and so forth and so on. And that side of the feminist movement has got to go. It's counterproductive, it's divisive, it's hurting men and boys. We need to move back to a place of equality.
I have to credit Tom Golden for the writing that he's contributed and found that very helpful with understanding the differences in the ways that men experience and express their emotions. And there's also another man named Michael Gurian, who has written extensively on the psychology of boys and girls, that his work has also been very helpful for understanding the differences in the ways that males and females experience and express emotion. One of the things that I've been able to do is cultivate an approach to helping men with learning to manage their anger, mostly through psychoeducation and teaching them that in order to improve the way they manage their anger, they have to be willing to engage what they learn from me when they're angry, instead of talking about it afterwards or beforehand. And that's really when the change happens. And when they learn during those moments that they can choose different words or tone down their behavior, or however, it helps the man become more confident in his emotional states that are activated. So again, it's just been difficult as a male therapist in California, learning to work specifically with men, because there is actually not very much good material out there for working specifically with men and male emotion. And, honestly, it's challenging being a male therapist, because here in California, most of the licensed marriage and family therapists and social workers are not male. It's been a common experience of mine from graduate school until the present, of going to continuing education and so on, and feeling like I may be the only one in the room that has the voice and the perspective that represents the everyday man. And, it sort of showed up here, Richard, too, when you invited me to speak. I was reluctant to speak up and say anything, because I have had so many experiences where I just simply get shut down. And so I just don't even bother. So after reflecting, after you invited me to talk, I thought I could just make an introduction, and that's what I chose to do here. being hurt physically or emotionally or relationally is another pathway for anger to occur, as is fear and frustration. So when these primary emotions lead a man into a state of anger, he's into fight or flight mode. His heart is racing. His adrenaline is pumping. His breathing is going to be in the upper part of his chest and not in the lower. And his muscles are going to be tense, including his torso muscles. So then when he vocalizes, by his natural state of being male, his body has got a capacity that causes his voice to become loud. And this causes fear in others, which is actually the function of anger when you trace it back evolutionarily. So the whole thing that I do is try to help men understand the process of the ingredients that lead to anger, the recipe for anger, and then being more aware of their impact of it, which is just the natural way that men emote when it's anger. The thing I said about adults having to suppress their emotions to become more mature and stoic, you don't get raises and promotions in the workplace from telling everybody at the office all about your problems. You got to keep your stuff together.
This is frustrating for me because we don't have enough time, and I'm sure it's frustrating for the other people out there because we don't have enough time. My email address is in the comments section, and if anybody wants to talk to me more, ask questions or whatever, please feel free to contact me. So that's one thing. I did want to say something to AJ, who wanted to focus on capitalism instead of these issues. And certainly there are abuses in the capitalist system, but I've been around the world. I've been in communist countries, they're just as sexist. I've been in socialist countries, they're just as sexist. Everywhere in the world, it's just as sexist. And every species, so let's take the blame out of this. It's not like, I would hate to be a male pursuer of a black widow spider. It's not going to end well for me, but it's not her fault. This is just a system. Every species has sexism, and we have had these sex roles since before we were humans. We just inherited them and just never really thought about them. We've refined them as civilization progresses, but we maintain the same. Men are in charge of production and protection and initiating sexual relationships. Women are in charge of giving birth and socializing children. And we've only refined that system. This is the first time that we can sit down and say, we don't need this anymore. How can we go forward to have a system that treats everyone fairly and equally with the same opportunities? But we have to do it without the blame, because it's nobody's fault. We just inherited it.
tinyurl.com/redpillmen. Like and share our videos. I'll keep you all informed. You're all on the Facebook page. And I think this has been a good discussion to begin this series. I don't know when the next one's coming out, but I think that there's a lot of anti-male propaganda and misandry that has developed that needs to be confronted or needs to be diminished if we expect to bring men back into the Democratic Party and expect to bring women and men back together politically and in relationships. So I want to thank everybody for coming and participating, and thank you. And we'll see you next week, or if not, next month, or as soon as possible. Thank you, everybody. All right. Bye now.